Are you able to wear your down stuff during the middle of a hot summer day like I am right now? If you are, probably means you need to wash it. Today I'm going to go over some of the ways of how you're supposed to wash your down products and do it correctly. And I'll show you some of the areas that I feel like some people making mistakes on when they're washing their stuff and how they can potentially ruin it and how I've actually ruined my stuff throughout the years. Welcome to Laundry Day Dirtbag Backpacker Edition. Let's get started with this. Okay, first things first, you're gonna want to get a down specific wash like this one I have here from Nick Wax. I have a link for it down in the description, and the reason why you want to use the proper down specific wash is because down has its natural oils to it, and if you use regular detergent that has degreasers in it, it'll strip away the natural oils from the down products. On top of that, they have different fragrances and whatnot on there, on traditional detergents that causes the down to lose a lot of its loft. That's why you want to pick up this, and if you use a traditional detergent to wash your down products, it can void the warranty for them. So that's the first step. On to the second step. I got 2 buckets to wash my sleeping quilt and down jacket. You're not supposed to wash your stuff in the washing machine for some items, such as my sleeping quilt. If you do that, they'll void your warranty through a light and equipment. My warranty is probably long gone since now. And I've thrown my down jacket through the wash traditional detergent before, and I think it's kind of ruined some of the down in it. I'm gonna see if I can restore it with this. So that's why I got each one separated so I don't have any cross contamination between the two of them. Both of these products aren't looking too good for me personally. And then having 2 buckets at once lets me do each one quicker. For your scenario, you might be able to just do it in the bathtub at home. Just make sure to give it a good clean out and get all the soaps and nasties out of there first before you wash your down stuff. So we got the buckets filling up behind us. I'm gonna use roughly 15 liters of water on each one. Just gonna eye it up. I don't know exactly how much it is. And for every 12 to 15 liters of water, you want to use 100 milliliters of Nick Wax. So that means I'm going to want to use roughly 2 capfuls because I believe the cap is about 50 milliliters each. And that should be enough to get us going for our first cycle through. For my quilt, I'm going to wash it through twice because my quilt has over 300 nights on it and it's extra oily and greasy. You're going to start submerging your stuff into the tub. You're going to want to squish it out and get all the air pockets out. This may take a while and your quilt might float better than you expect. It's nice and gentle too. I can feel all the grams disappearing. Like you're getting lighter. There's so much air in this quilt. Special guest appearance, Paige Guthrie here. So what are you doing?
I'm rolling it.
Kind of want to act like a cat. You know when a cat's kneading its bed? It's got a claw at it. Nice and gently. Once you get all the air out of the quilt, it makes it a lot easier to submerge it and actually start washing it. The good trick that Paige did was start rolling it up. That gets all the air out of it nice and quickly, and then just lay it out. Then you want to kind of work it out like a cat and kind of knead along. Once you do that and give everything a good squish through, you want to let it sit for about like 10 to 15 minutes. While this one sits, I'm going to work on down jacket and get that going. Something you might want to be mindful of is if you have any patches on your jacket or quilt. I just have Gorilla Tape holding part of my jacket together. So water shouldn't penetrate through this and shouldn't cause it to lift. It should be fine just to stay on here. But if you have a patch that's water soluble for whatever reason, which I don't know why you would, just be mindful of that. One thing you want to do is make sure you zip up everything. Whoops, and don't catch it in the zipper like I just did. Make sure your zippers are done up. So just look at the quality differences between my sleeping quilt and my down jacket. My down jacket's coming out a lot more clear. It's not really affecting the color of the Nick Wax. Where my sleeping quilt is quite dark and murky. So I'm gonna give that one actually a second wash. But first we have to rinse them out, and I have to do a full rinse cycle to get them clean. What you want to do for the rinse cycle is that you want to dump out all the dirty water and refill it with regular water and start squeezing it, working it out. You got to do that a few times until everything starts coming out clear. You want that bath water nice and shiny. Nice thing about using Nick Wax is it's a nice, clean, sustainable product, so I'm just fine to dump it out here on the driveway. You're gonna find that even after you dump out all your water, you have to work the quilt quite a bit to get the water out of it. It likes to sponge it up. And now for the cliche, rinse and repeat. So the water in my charcoal 100 is coming up clean still, and it's been through roughly 5 cycles of rinsing to get all the water out of it. Now I'm gonna go over my quilt and wash that one again because I wanna make sure that one's extra clean. You may have to do that too if your sleeping bag or quilt had quite a few uses out of it and it's extra oily and dirty. So let's see if we can bring this one back to life by giving it another good wash. Again, like the first time, we're gonna let this sit in here for about 10 minutes. Now let's go with the down jacket and wring that thing out properly. I'm gonna rinse off my arms. So this is where doing it in the bathtub is going to make it a lot easier wringing it out. You're going to want to work it out and get all the water out, but the problem is when you wring it out in the bucket here, all the water pools on the bottom, then you got to dump it out. Rinse and repeat. Hey, that's where that saying comes from. Already done a little bit of wringing out of the water. There won't be a whole lot left I can get. So if you followed all your steps correctly, your jacket should look something like this. And I'm just kidding. This is where the boring part really starts. Now we have to dry it. And now I'm just gonna let it air dry for the first little while, just to let it dry out the best as can and let it drip dry everywhere. Oh, this thing feels awful. Down really doesn't keep you warm when it's wet. This thing's freezing right now. Okay, it's been a few minutes. I've been really working at the quilt trying to get it out. You just gotta take your time with it and really work it. Okay, now that we finished rinsing it, now we need to wring it out and get it dry. This is the long, very tedious part coming up. When you're filming out your quilt, you want to be really careful when you pick it up because it can get really heavy with all the down in it. Luckily, this is only a 40° or 5° Celsius quilt, so there's not a lot of down to it, and it's not very heavy, but be very careful with that. With my decathlon jacket, it was made of a heavier nylon, so I'm able to pick it up and manhandle it a little bit more. But with this lighter 10-denier nylon, you have to be a lot more careful because it can be a lot more fragile. What you want to do is just gently work it and start rolling it. Squeeze as much water as you possibly can get out of it. I really spent a good amount of time doing this, trying to get it dry. So I spent a good while wringing out the sleeping quilt. Everything's very clumpy now. So now I'm gonna move it over to a hanging rack and dry it out over there. But one thing you have to do is pick it up very carefully because under its own weight, it can rip. So I'm gonna carry everything over to the bucket and carefully lay it out along the drying rack and continue wringing it out over there. Oh, we're just gonna work it out along the drying rack. Okay. I wringed out quite a bit of water, so it's fairly light already. So now I'm gonna let the quilt drip dry for a few hours and let it air out in the sun. Luckily it's a hot and windy day, so it's perfect conditions for drying it. Then later on we'll get to the part where we stick it in the dryer.
Okay, so we have the sad bag rolled out on the towel. Just gonna fold it over. Fold it over. Fold it over. And then you're just gonna... I can already feel the towel getting wet. We might need to do a couple of towels.
Yeah, this really helps speed up the process though.
And then you just kind of, not too hard.
So now that everything's been sitting out on the rack drying for a couple hours, we're gonna bring things inside and start drying things in the dryer. We're gonna put things on a no heat, nice gentle tumble cycle just to get everything going. And also it'll break up the down in there. And as you can see, my down jacket, it looks dry, but all the down is wet on the inside. When you grab it and squeeze it, you can feel that it's damp on the inside, but the outside shell material dries really quickly, while on the inside the down is still quite wet. The same thing's going over for the sleeping quilt too. It's big clumps of it, or so. I spent a lot of time trying to break it up and get it loose, but it's just how it is. It's the nature of it when it's wet, so it just takes time to dry out, but you still gotta keep on working it, and it takes quite a while to do. It's definitely an all-day activity doing this, as now the sun's starting to set and we gotta bring it inside, like I said, for the dryer. You can only do this if you're outside somewhere in like a dry, warm environment. If it was a very humid area, this would never dry out. You just have to start and use it in the dryer, but I'm trying to limit my dryer time just to keep damage of the quilt in my jacket to a minimum from getting tossed around in there. Oh, kind of ragdoll like. Also, after it's been sitting outside in the sun for a couple hours, you can feel that the material is quite a bit lighter. It's safe to pick up and kind of toss around. It still has some weight, so like, don't pick it up and toss it around. But one thing you want to pick up too, if you want to have tennis balls or dryer balls when you put it in the dryer, to help break up the down as it's in the dryer. I don't know how well you guys can tell from the camera, but there's big clumps like this everywhere in the quilt. This would make for an awful sleep if your quilt was this wet.
Better cooking. Give it a...
No.
A fluff.
Oh, fluffy fluff. It's been a few days since the last clip, and I'll give you guys an update on what's happened. What happened with the Trek 100 jacket, I had it on the no heat for about a 2-hour cycle, and then put it on low heat for about half an hour, and it was completely dry. For my sleeping quilt, it took a little bit longer for that thing to dry out. I had it on for about 3 hours in total, and then I let it sit out overnight, and then the next day I tossed it again on like a low heat setting for about an hour, and then it was pretty decently dry for then. So what are the end results for this? Good and bad results for both of it. For my sleeping quilt, it came back slightly. It actually lost 10 grams of weight, but the down didn't quite fully loft back to the point I was hoping it to. I don't know how well you guys can see, but it's still quite flat through here. And it's still quite, it bunches up even when you try to work it around. But yeah, is what it is. So unfortunately, if you see my last video from 300 Nights with the Enigma, it didn't hold up, and I think this thing's just gonna be good for car camping at this point forward. So I'll need to invest in another sleeping quilt. But with the Trek 100, a lot of the loft came back in the arm areas where I noticed that the down was looking quite flat in there. And throughout the chest too. It's lofted up quite a bit in the loft return. If you wash your down products in regular wash detergent, you don't have to worry about it actually can come back. So I'm really happy about that. So it was 50-50. One win, one kind of win. Had some free weight savings. This, for the down jacket, it didn't affect the weight at all because it was fairly clean to begin with. It just was lacking loft in the baffles. If you haven't seen the video yet, check out my review of my lighting equipment Enigma on the sides over here. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. I had a really cool adventure that happened a few days ago. Things didn't go to plan, so there's a good story behind that. Let you guys know next week. See ya.